Greetings, everyone. My name's Yvonne Ridley, and we'll be live streaming any second now. Yeah, we've got the thumbs up, so greetings to everyone who's watching out there as well. And welcome to the launch of the Workers' Party Scotland. We are standing candidates in the Holyrood elections, and we would be asking for your support and your votes, and to tell all your friends about us. I was really delighted when I found out that we had booked the Pearce Institute. I'd just discovered its rich history and the history of John Maclean, who turned this place into the Labour College, sort of working man's university. And all the great things that have happened in this hall, it's truly amazing and humbling. So I'm making this address very much with John Maclean in mind. And so I would say, citizens of Clyde, sons and daughters, I address you today from what was once the industrial workshop of the world. We stand in the Pearce Institute, which was the beating heart of Govan radicalism. Some of you will notice that I pronounced it correctly this time. I see Mick Napier there had to correct me in my last public address for Scottish Palestine Solidarity Campaign when I addressed the people of Govan, and he made that correction. So this was the base for John Maclean's Scottish Labour College, a site of revolutionary rallies and rent strikes. Maclean was dubbed the most dangerous man in Britain because he dared to educate workers in Marxist economics. He taught the ragged-trousered philanthropists that by toiling in poverty, they were philanthropically gifting their wealth to the boss class. That's why he was called the most dangerous man in Britain. The intelligence services, the secret services, MI5, hello if any of you are here today, that's why they called him the most dangerous man. But that was the glory of Red Clydeside. But where are they today? They tell us Scotland is a nation adrift. I ask you, who cut the moorings? I blame Thatcherites in London, who now claim our industrial decline is state suicide. In other words, they're blaming us for the decline of this great city. They dug the grave and then expected us to jump in it and lie still. We are surrounded by modern philanthropists, honest people handing their last pennies to the energy companies while their children shiver. They are giving their lives to a state that hates them. I say it is time we stopped being philanthropists to a dying union and started being masters of our own house. Look at the hollowed out hulls in our shipyards. Look at the capped oil wells in our North Sea. Our seas, not Westminster's. They sold our steel, they choked our coal, and now they're freezing our pensioners. We are yoked to a Westminster corpse that rewards liars while the working classes are suffering. I don't say we lightly. I chose Scotland as my home in 2011, and I headed north for independence. So I voted with my feet. Standing here, I feel that solidarity in my veins. We are the heirs to John Maclean, who told the Empire he stood not as the accused, but as the accuser. We also remember Jimmy Reid, who warned us back in 1972, a rat race is for rats. We are human beings. The Workers' Party of Scotland refuses to play the establishment game. If you elect us to Holyrood, we will not be rodents in their crumbling maze. Look at the managers of our decline. John Swinney, the ultimate continuity man. He's a man with so little backbone, he makes a jellyfish look like a cage fighter. He's got the charisma of a damp Sunday in Millport, and he's now presiding over a slow-motion car crash while telling us to smile and enjoy the view. Anna Sarwar, a Tory light tribute act in the shadow of his father. He talks about the working class, but the only Labour he understands is making sure his family business turns a tidy profit. As my great-aunt Lizzie would say, he's all fur coat and no knickers. Alex Cole Hamilton, the ultimate TMU politician. You ordered a leader and you got a Lib Dem leaflet that nobody asked for. He is as annoying as the closed sign in a chippy when you're starving. Ross Greer. Where do I begin? The wee ginger pup playing at Revolution in his £120 eucalyptus fibre trainers. He looks less like a revolutionary and more like a youth pastor about to explain the book of Genesis was actually part of the original Minecraft. This is a boy wonder who's never done a day's graft in his puff, yet he's the first to stick his hand in the pockets of the men who actually built this city. But it's not just our wages he's confused about. This is a man so lost in the faculty lounge that he's forgotten the basics of biology. He sits in Holyrood and tells us that women can have penises. Well, Ross, maybe in your vegan-powered fevered dreams, but not in the real world, bonny lad. He's so progressive, his brain is falling out. He wants to tax your van, tax your commute, and then lecture you on womanhood while he's still got the smell of student union beer on his breath. He's no leader. He's a sanctimonious wee ink monitor who's mistaken Twitter for the shipyards. Actually, most of these quislings can't even tell you what a woman is. They aren't leaders. They're the maggots writhing in the carcass of a dying city. And if the Holyrood lot are the maggots, then the gormless man in Downing Street is the blowfly that laid them. Yes, they are the maggots writhing in the carcass of a dying city, getting fat while the rest of us starve in the cold. They sit in Holyrood acting like they're the elite, but they're nothing more than glorified bailiffs for a Westminster zombie machine. They even talk of state suicide, But you will find out that the Workers' Party of Scotland talks about national birth, about hope for the future. They fear the breakup of the UK. Well, I say, let it break. It is a cage for our poverty and their arrogance. The poets warned us. Robert Burns didn't write for the bought and sold for English gold. He wrote for the man of the independent mind, and that is who this speech is aimed at. People who can think for themselves. We don't want sheeple in the Workers' Party. That mind lives here in the fire of your anger. Westminster cannot stop the migrant boats on their own beaches in Kent. Yet Keir Starmer, the professional U-turner, or Tel Aviv Keith as I call him, is eager to send warships to the Strait of Hormuz for the deranged nutters in the White House. Our Royal Navy is a collection of floating museum pieces. We have more admirals than hulls. It is a cardboard fleet for a cardboard government. Starmer isn't sacrificing his own children. He's sacrificing ours. The Workers' Party says no. No to conscription, and it's coming. Conscription is coming. Keir Starmer says that we have to be battle ready. What does he mean by that? I'll tell you what he means by that. He means conscription. He can keep his filthy hands off our bairns. They are not cannon fodder, and they will not be lions led by donkeys like they were in Iraq. The time for polite petitions is over. If they want a sea of troubles, let us be the tide that washes their career.
The first thing I want to say is that we are a socialist party, and we stand against the whole spectrum of neoliberal, establishment, career politicians, from the Tories on bikes on the left to the Tories in tartan or turquoise, all with different motivations and interests, different left-wing or right-wing political identities, but all united in their dedication to keep the profits flowing, the gears of the war machine well-oiled, and the working class divided and in its place. The policies of our manifesto, summed up in the 10-point programme adopted by our party at its founding in 2019, unite all of us, whatever other disagreements we might have, against war and against the anarchy of the market, in favour of a planned economy which supports the worker, the small business owner, and even the big business owner, just so long as they are all acting in the national interest. We aren't afraid of strategic nationalisation, particularly of the towering heights of the economy, the monopolies, the railways, the electricity grid, the water companies, the NHS and the pharmaceutical companies on which it depends, whose profiteering is a direct attack on our basic needs. To us, nationalisation isn't just a token gesture like it was when the SNP nationalised ScotRail, but a tool to be used to increase efficiency and actually bring prices down. We put the needs of ordinary workers and their families above the profits of the elites who have dug their claws into every facet of our society. Capitalists, Zionists, the Epstein class, Peter Mandelson, Prince Andrew and their mates. The people who own the media, the people who control the algorithms, the people who raise the price of your shopping, the cost of your energy bill, the amount you're paying on rent and council tax, who decide whether or not you have a job, whether or not you have a home, whether or not you have basic human dignity. And whether the incredible power and potential of your hard work and ingenuity are put towards curing cancer or bombing the Middle East, towards solving hunger and homelessness, or towards more financial speculation under a deindustrialized gambler's economy run by predators in the City of London, while our cities are literally burning down around us. Why do we need a new working class politics? Because the left has utterly alienated the working class in this country. By failing to address their material needs and getting sucked into divisive identity politics, purity politics, moralizing, patronizing, most of the left can't tell the difference between an angry, working-class person railing against the government and a system which has subjected them to squalid conditions, and a racist or a fascist. Most of the left can't even talk to working class people anymore, and they're definitely not listening to them. This needs to change, and there is no mass political party of the working class in this country. The Labour Party was meant to fulfill this role. What happened? At the height of the workers' struggle in Britain, the first and last general strike way back in 1926, the Labour Party and the corrupt trade union leaders worked together to shut down coordinated resistance, to start up the war machine against the Soviet Union, and to keep profits flowing out of working-class communities. We now have a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to smash the Labour Party once and for all, to break the links with the trade unions, to end the intimidation against organisers and trade union reps who dare to step out of line and stand against this corrupt, warmongering party of so-called Labour, with high-ranking members exposed for their relationships with child traffickers and paedophiles. Shame! So we're not afraid to say that the Labour Party cannot be reset. It cannot be reclaimed. It must be completely and utterly destroyed. And we will be that political battering ram that will smash that link once and for all and open the doorway to a renewed militant trade union movement, and one day a socialist one. And we're not going away after this election is over, because we're also a campaigning organisation. Through our One State Palestine campaign, we are the only political party that actively fights for a single democratic state of Palestine to end apartheid for good, with equal rights for people of all faiths and nationalities, from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea. We are the only political party that actively campaigns to halt the calls for conscription, with thousands already signed up to our No Conscription League who refuse to fight or send their children to fight in the name of king and country only to die for Israel. And through our No to NATO campaign, we are the only political party that campaigns for an end to the United States proxy war in Ukraine and an end to NATO membership, which puts us all in danger. So yes, if you can, please donate to our campaign fund. Please help us get the vote out for the Workers' Party on the 7th of May. But more importantly, please join us as a member so that you can help us build up the organisation and do more for working class people in this country. Because our real strength isn't in money or votes. It is in the fact that workers in this country form the overwhelming majority, but just lack the organisation to channel that power. I'd like to end by quoting the maiden speech of Paisley militant and Red Clydesider Willie Gallagher to the House of Commons when he was elected as one of the first communist MPs for West Fife. "It is a crime against the people of this country to spend another penny on armaments. Every penny we can get should be on wages for the miners, towards the health and well-being of the mothers and the children, and adequate pensions for the aged and infirm. We require every penny we can get in order to make life better for the working class. If the £7 billion which we spent during the war in ruin and destruction had been spent in making life brighter and better for the people of this country, what a difference it would have made. And I make an appeal even while I give a warning. Do not try to stop us on the road on which we are travelling. Do not try to block the road by meshes of legal entanglements or fascist gangs. Do not try it. lest an evil day come upon you, and you have to pay a price far beyond any present reckoning. Thank you very much.
Friday night. Good evening and welcome to what is the first of many public meetings for the Workers' Party Scotland. Very proud to have been asked to join by the wonderful and amazing Yvonne Ridley, who basically wore me down over many months. And here I am, one of your candidates. I've already made a bit of a scooshy by going to a hustings the other day in Glasgow, and being a terrible, awful person, I asked a question, not realising the person that was going to answer that question is the SNP's Minister for Equality. Ironically, she didn't answer the question. Instead, it all became about transgender, and then I pointed out that I hadn't mentioned that, and that wasn't actually the meaning of my question. We have not only some great people already standing, and I expect there might be some more before the deadline next week. But one thing that's different between us and Reform, we haven't had any candidates resign yet. And I don't expect them to either. 5 very simple messages is what I'm looking forward to delivering. No to war, which is... which, when we decided that this was going to be one of our main messages, political messages in this campaign, Iran had not been bombed. So it turns out that not only were we bang on the money, forgive the pun, but how are we going to do that, being in Scotland? Well, there's been some thought put into it. The Scottish Government owns Prestwick Airport. Prestwick Airport is being used to refuel RAF and American bombers. And our so-called First Minister, the SNP leader, seems too weak to stand up and do anything about it, and says we can't really do anything about it. Well, we can, because we own it. So of course we can ban planes from landing on it if we don't want it. So I think we start with that. The second thing, which ironically has now been in the Sun newspaper, the Times, the Express, and all over social media, all comes from that terrible question that I happened to ask and not realise that wonderful Yvonne Ridley was actually secretly videoing it as well, which is excellent that she did that. But it wasn't planned at all. But it was a very serious question, which is, I was in the Scottish Parliament when these crazy MSPs made speeches and voted to allow men to self-identify and go into women's safe spaces. I was there when they did it. I could tell straight away there's a disaster waiting to happen. 3 weeks later, there was a convicted rapist being sent to a women's prison. Well, who could have guessed that would happen? Well, anyone who gave 5 minutes thought to it. So we want one of our first things when we get elected, which you're all going to help us do. We're going to strike out the dormant GRR bill. We're going to have it struck off. Because those that were paying attention will now realise the UK government blocked it under Section 35, as I predicted they would. However, it's not gone away. The cynical SNP and Greens decided not to strike it out, even though they had lost the battle. Did you know that they've spent £1.1 million in court fees trying to defend the indefensible GRR bill and other transgender pieces of legislation? 1.1 million. That might have fixed a few roads. So we're going to strike out the GRR bill. And the second thing very close to my heart, when I was in the Alba Party, which some of you will know I was in the Alba Party, the last thing I did before I left, which I left on good terms, was I wrote a motion called Empowering Parents and Protecting Children. What does that mean? Well, it's very simple. We're going to change the Scotland Education Act 2025 by inserting one sentence in it, giving parents the legal veto over controversial teaching materials. You will have to give your informed consent before it's taught, giving you the power, not a Westminster or Scottish Government guidelines. And mainly shaped because of my 81-year-old mother is currently unwell in a hospital, and we're trying to get her back home and get 24/7 care for her. And if she went into a care home, well, this must be the only so-called civilized country that allows people to pay all their taxes, invest in a property, pay their mortgage, and just before, unfortunately, they're going to die, they need care, they'll take their home off them and sell it to pay for the care costs. This is an absolute outrage. So we are going to protect pensioners from the cost of care. Currently, there's 30,000 people in a care home in Scotland. Over 65% of them are in care because they've got dementia or Alzheimer's. How fair is it that when you come to the end of your life, you're going to have to sell everything for the last 2 years of your care? Because on average, people go into a home for 2 years. The next generation is then robbed of what they would have inherited. So it makes it even more difficult for them to find the deposit for a house. This is an outrage, and we can fix it. We've done the numbers, and there's ways of paying for this. This is basic decency. So that's what we stand for. The Workers' Party is a breath of fresh air. While the SNP has promised to bring in another transgender piece of legislation, well, I can tell you this. I will make sure, if I'm elected, along with all the other candidates for the Workers' Party, we will block it, we will stop it, we will drag them through the courts to expose this hypocrisy and madness that they're trying to perpetrate, because it's not based on reality. And finally, for my friends in the independence movement and who love Scotland as much as I do, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to get Scotland ready for its future. What is being promised by John Swinney is a lie. He says that he's got a secret plan. Well, I think I've heard this before, 12 years ago. We're still waiting on that secret plan. So we fully support all nations' right to self-determination, whether it's Palestine, Scotland, or any other of the ex-colonized countries. Every nation has a right to self-determination. So just before I go and call our next speaker, who's much more entertaining than I am, we're going to be out in the doors. We're looking to raise money. We have a clear campaign. The first leaflet you'll have seen was literally almost wet ink, just arrived before I left. That's why I was nearly late. You can see where we're coming from, a clear, simple message. The no to war, I think, not only is it most important, and we're the only party doing it. No other parties. The Tories are silent on it. Nobody's saying that they should bring an end to this war. They seem to be thinking it's an investment. And when I was in the Alba Party, when I was in the SNP, much longer ago, my first speech was in 2017, and I supported a resolution by the youth wing. This is before they were all rabid transgender lunatics, which I'm afraid they are now. And it was a simple motion to raise the minimum age of recruitment in the armed forces from 16 to 18. And I agreed to make a speech, never done it before, didn't have a speech written down. Had 4 key words. Got up onto the stage and stood up there in front of 4,000 people, which was a bit daunting, and made a 2.5-minute speech. We won that argument. That is the party's policy, and it's a party policy that every party should have. 16-year-olds cannot possibly understand what they're letting themselves in for. So, and the piece of legislation that I found, and a briefing note from the House of Commons, from the head of the Armed Forces, confirmed that persons under the age of 18 years, when they're deployed to a war zone in Iraq, will be removed as soon as practically possible. So a 16 to 17-year-old could have ended up in Iraq or Afghanistan, and no doubt that's what Mr. Starmer's got in mind for everyone else's children. He won't be sending his own, of course. So no to war. The Workers' Party is the only party that is going to stand by this and deliver its principles. Thank you. Our next speaker, come all the way from Edinburgh, I believe. I did hear police sirens, so I'm not sure if they were following him or not. Anyway, can I please introduce Bobby Prince Bob?
Thank you, David. I don't know quite how entertaining I'm going to be this evening, but thank you for that introduction. We are gathered here this evening in Govan, an area of Glasgow where the wounds of 50 years of neoliberalism weep into the very fabric of the streets that surround us. Hopelessness, poverty and despair are etched on the faces of the forgotten. Yet Govan is by no means unique. The same abandonment can be found in every city, town and village throughout this country today. Every day of our lives, we are subjected to the insulting rhetoric of a party political class comprised of narcissists, sociopaths and careerists, plastic bureaucrats whose allegiance to the party whip and the whims of corporate lobbyists ensure that any and all decisions affecting the lives of the common man and women are decisions forged entirely in the interests of capital. Glasgow has a proud history of collectivism and resistance. The list of men and women who dedicated their lives in the name of socialism and working-class solidarity is universally impressive. McLean, Reid, Barber, McLean. The list goes on. But I hail from Salt and Sauce land, where we too have a number of honourable heads to add to the pantheon of class struggle. Over 100 years ago, Edinburgh's most famous revolutionary son, James Connolly, uttered these immortal words: "Governments are but committees of the rich to manage the affairs of the capitalist class." Connolly could very well have made that statement today or on any day over the last 50 years under the democratic perversion of neoliberalism. It was perhaps one of his most prescient insights that government, far from embodying popular power, so often functions as an impediment to it. As I look around contemporary Scottish society, I see communities left to rot. Addiction, disease and malaise pervade every corner of this country. Our drug death statistics alone should serve as a career-ending condemnation on the bastards who have allowed this travesty to endure year after year. And now what do we see? Capital's oldest and most naked division, the ruling class's default mechanism of self-preservation, the disgusting eruption of racism with the drift towards fascism. There is no greater indictment of a failed society than one which allows racial division to enter the body politic. And yet that is where we are today in March 2026. Neoliberalism as an ideology, like all ideologies, can appear both simple and complex at the same time. Yet the longer a monster is allowed to roam, the more we can observe it. And thanks to critical theorists, we can ascertain a number of truths about the nature of this beast. Neoliberalism is more than privatisation, deregulation and low taxes. It is a social order and governing rationality that hollows out democracy, recasts every human need in economic terms, and reduces politics to administration. But most perniciously, it is a project designed to suppress consciousness, specifically class consciousness. What do I mean by class consciousness? I'll give you a simple example. Many years ago, while conversing with elections are no longer contests between competing visions of society. Political parties are now brands competing for market share. Electoral campaigns resemble product launches, while citizens are no longer participants in public life, but recast as consumers to be profiled, persuaded, and sold a political product. In this context, the outcome determines no meaningful structural change. Instead, it determines only which managerial faction wins the rights to administration and which groups will gain preferential access to public funds, influence, and lucrative contracts. And all of this spectacle is facilitated by a media class that is functionally inseparable from the political class it feigns to scrutinise. The neoliberal media class and the neoliberal political class are one and the same entity. They are socially, ideologically, and structurally intertwined. They operate within the same limits of acceptability, share the same assumptions about what counts as serious politics, and work together consciously or otherwise to reinforce the same exhausted social order. They insult the public with a tired oppositional masquerade while continuously shoring up the legitimacy of incumbents and pathologising all outsiders as either unserious, absurd, or peripheral. Their job is not to widen the political field, but to manage its boundaries, to decide who counts, who is credible, who is platformed, and who must be ridiculed, contained, or excluded. To be clear, the game is rigged. But it is rigged not only by corruption and media bias, it is rigged through predictability. The system relies heavily on polling data, modelling, turnout assumptions, focus groups, and demographic profiling. They know which groups vote and who stays at home. They know which anxieties can be provoked, which scandals matter, and which do not. It is this predictability that allows a socially bankrupt political class to remain calm and our media commentators to speak as though the future were already half-written. That is why I advocate a campaign of participatory disruption. The existing political class and media class require the electorate to be either compliant or absent. The system has spent decades training people to believe that their only choices are either cynical withdrawal or compliant selection. The first leaves the field undisturbed. The second legitimises its boundaries. The more dangerous possibility is different: to show up, to be counted, but to reject the menu on offer. This is participatory disruption. To refuse the blackmail of choosing between managerial brands and to reject a neoliberal order that has reduced public life to administration, class conflict to a culture war, and democracy to a ritual of managed consent. It is my belief that registering to vote, entering the voting booth, and either endorsing an independent outlier, anti-neoliberal party, or defacing your ballot with a special message or artistic expression of your choice carries far more significance than simply conforming to the system's modelling data. In my opinion, to protest effectively is not to not vote at all, but to vote in your own expressive terms. That is the deeper political significance of participatory disruption. It does not solve the crisis of neoliberal democracy, but it punctures one of the system's most cherished fictions, that those who enter the process do so to affirm its terms. I would like to thank Yvonne Ridley for inviting me this evening. I wish her and all the Workers' Party candidates the very best for the forthcoming campaign. I believe their manifesto presents a bold and alternative social vision. But before I finish this evening, I would wish to address the critics who have attacked me for choosing to speak at this event. Specifically, where I stand in relation to George Galloway. I have never met George Galloway. I have never spoken to him, aside from a short but fierce exchange during his pro-union tour in 2014 in Falkirk Town Hall, where I took the opportunity to challenge his position. Perhaps he remembers the encounter, perhaps he doesn't. Either way, Mr. Galloway appears to have shifted his view on the matter, and as someone who favours the dismantling of the British state, I welcome his change of opinion. It appears, though, that sections of Scotland's salaried commentariat and online opinionators are deeply sceptical of George Galloway's newfound perspective on Scottish sovereignty, the arrival of his working-class First Political Party, and his candidacy in the forthcoming election. A number of articles have already been published insisting that he is little more than a charlatan and a political opportunist. And so I wish to consider this particular accusation. For every ad hominem attack on George Galloway, and every question raised over his associations and shifting politics, there is one issue that he has remained not only consistent with, but relentlessly vocal and committed to, and that is the question of Palestinian liberation. For his entire life, George Galloway has rejected the racist ideology of Zionism and stood shoulder to shoulder with the Palestinian people. Throughout the last 2 years of despicable inhumanity and slaughter, George Galloway has used his own public broadcasting platform to denounce, deride and savage the perpetrators and apologists of what is without question the crime of the century. Now let us compare and contrast Mr. Galloway's position with that of John Swinney, Scotland's First Minister and head of the governing party, the SNP. On the 8th of August 2024, 10 months into their orgy of killing, as dead and limbless children were being pulled from the rubble of Gaza, Scotland's Culture Secretary, Angus Robertson, with the full approval of John Swinney, offered the Deputy Ambassador of Israel full diplomatic hospitality and spoke of our shared interests. Our shared interests. Then, a year later, on September the 3rd, 2025, to a grand media fanfare, John Swinney raised the Palestinian standard in front of St Andrew's House for the cameras and a front-page splash in the National, only to lower it before the ink had even dried. I cannot think of a more empty, opportunistic and vulgar act than cynically leveraging political capital from a people enduring ethnic cleansing and genocide. The genocide in Gaza and the complicity of the British government is the defining issue of our times. If you do choose to participate in this election, then judge your anti-imperialist candidates accordingly. Sor Alba, Free Palestine.
Thank you for that rousing speech, and thank you for exposing the hypocrisy of Angus Robertson. I don't know how many of you ever saw the Al Jazeera undercover documentary called The Lobby, but in it, a man called Shai Massot, who was later exposed as a Mossad agent, said of Angus Robertson, "Oh, Angus, he's our man in Scotland." Shame on him, and shame on anyone who votes that piece of filth back into Holyrood, because that's what he is. He's a genocide supporter. He supports this vile state of Israel which thinks it's acceptable to burn a child, a baby, with cigarettes, to torture. And just today going viral on Twitter is a picture of an IDF soldier jumping up and down on the stomach of a female Palestinian prisoner. It's obscene, and this sort of torture has become normalised. But this is the sort of regime that Angus Robertson is supporting, and we must show our disgust in voting for him. So thank you for mentioning that, Bob. We seem to have a run on Edinburgh at the moment because our next speaker is Abu Merrin, who is who is standing as a candidate in Edinburgh, and I think that there's going to be a fine array of people to choose from to vote in Edinburgh, as there is in Glasgow. So if I can welcome Abu Merrin onto the stage. He originates from Bangladesh, and the politics there are taken very, very seriously. And the students in Bangladesh showed us what real resistance can do, and they brought down the brutal dictatorship of Sheikh Hasina. Some paid with their life, but it was an example of student rebellion, and they did a fantastic job. So our own revolutionary, Abu Merrin.
Thank you, Yvonne Ridley, for such a kind introduction. Good evening, everyone. Thank you all for joining us here tonight. It's an honor to be here. I stand before you not as a career politician, but as someone who understands the pressure people are facing every single day. Let's be honest. Life is getting harder. Rents are rising. Energy bills are rising. Food prices are rising. But wages are not keeping up. Public services are stressed. NHS waiting times are unbearable. And those in power are not listening. The truth is, the leading parties have had their turns. They have made promises, they have asked for your trust, and too often they have let you down. That is why I'm standing as a candidate for Workers' Party. We believe in something simple. People should always come before profit. We believe work should pay fairly, housing should be a basic right, not luxury. Energy should be affordable for all. Public services should serve the public, not private corporations. This is not radical, it's common sense. In one of the wealthiest countries in the world, no one should have to choose between energy and food. No families should have to struggle just to get by while big corporations are making record profits. We say, enough is enough. Our communities are strong. Our peoples are hardworking, but the system is not working for us. And it will not change unless we change it. I am standing because politics should give voice to ordinary people. Not lobbyists, not the big donors, not elites, but to hard-working people like you and me. Dear friends, your struggles matter, your hopes matter, your future matter. And let me be clear, this is about me, it's about all of us. It's about Scotland, it's about building a fairer society where no one is left behind. Where as Scotland have the right to self-determination. I know you feel frustrated and you are not alone. I know you feel ignored and you are not alone. And if you want a real change, this is your moment. Together, we can send a powerful message that the time for change is now. Together, we can stand up for fairness, dignity, and justice. Together, we can ensure that people comes before profit. Together, we say no to war. Together, we can bring the future of Scotland in Scotland's hand. Thank you all.
Our next speaker is going to talk about housing, and there is a crisis in Scotland over housing. When I first read about Laura Jones, I said to Eben, we need to get this woman speaking at our launch event, and he said, she's already accepted. So he knew about her in advance. So it gives me great pleasure to invite Laura on the stage, and I hope that she'll be coming to more of our events.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. If you want to know the main reason for the housing crisis in Scotland, you need look no further than the Wheatley Group. The biggest landlord in Europe, it has been steadily snapping up smaller housing associations and now owns a huge proportion of Scotland's public housing and infrastructure. It does not answer to its tenants or to the communities it is supposed to serve. It answers to its shareholders and ultimately to BlackRock. Since the disastrous stock transfer in Glasgow just over 20 years ago, Wheatley has been responsible for the demolition in Glasgow alone of roughly 160,000 social homes. Wheatley's planned redevelopment in the Wynford, paid for with £100 million of public money, involved the demolition of 4 25-storey tower blocks containing 600 social homes and the destruction of our much-loved community centre, to be replaced with 350 mid-market rent properties to increase Wheatley's rental income. The Wynford Residents' Union, with the support of the Scottish Tenants Organisation, fought these plans, and immediately Wheatley went on the attack, employing every conceivable weapon to crush resistance to their plans. Corporate espionage, including the clever application of identity politics, police intimidation, propaganda, fake public consultations, and even bribing community members and sectarian and racist thugs to turn members of the community against each other. With Wheatley, who had millions of pounds at their disposal and the backing of the SNP and the Scottish Greens, to pump tens of thousands of tons of carbon into the atmosphere and poison our rivers, all without even carrying out an environmental impact assessment. Hundreds of tenants were evicted, the most vulnerable were bullied, threatened, and some they even tried to send to live in hotels. Our campaign involved supporting those tenants, putting together a case for retrofitting the tower blocks, countering Wheatley's lies and beating them in court once and taking them to the Court of Session, holding a public ballot of every community member in the Wynford and winning with a landslide, and numerous direct actions, including occupying the tower blocks. We drew on the support and expertise of top architects, experts in retrofitting, carbon capture, VAT, ecologists, environmental and social activists, and homelessness campaigners. We may not have saved the tower blocks, but we forced them to concede 85% of the new properties will be for social rent, not their originally planned 0%. And we ensured a replacement for our community centre. We gave Wheatley such a headache and caused them so much time and money, we may have delayed the gentrification of the north of Glasgow for decades to come. In the time that the Wynford tower blocks stood empty, hundreds of people died in temporary accommodation in Scotland. 67 women died in hotels and B&Bs of the kind that have broken the law thousands of times over by being unsuitable, unhealthy, unclean, and often dangerous, especially for women. In Glasgow, there are currently 424 women stuck in mixed-sex hotels, lacking proper amenities, security, or oversight, vulnerable to theft, physical attacks, sexual predation, and exploitation. There are also 108 families with children. We desperately need specific, safe accommodation for homeless women and children with wraparound care that meets their needs, and the Scottish Tenants Organisation will continue to campaign for those services despite ideological opposition from the Housing Minister, Mary McCallan, whose staff told us that they don't agree with that model. The SNP and the Greens and Labour are committed to pursuing a model whereby the Wheatley Group dictates housing policy, where public money is spent to deplete our public housing stock, where hundreds die in profiteering hotels while perfectly good buildings that could be retrofitted are destroyed. The Wheatley Group is a monster that must be destroyed. We need a mass programme of council house building, a national housing company, and we need decent functioning homeless services that protect the most vulnerable in society. So I urge the Workers' Party Scotland to endorse the Scottish Tenants Organisation's manifesto, a 20-point plan to burst the housing bubble, bring down rents and solve Scotland's shameful homelessness crisis. Thank you.
Our next speaker is another candidate, not from Edinburgh this time, but from the northeast of Scotland. And I'd like to welcome Peter Ashby onto the stage. And looking forward to hearing more about what he has to say. Thank you. Thank you, Peter.
Hello, I'm actually Dr. Peter Ashby. I'm not a medical doctor, I'm a scientist. I was a bioscientist. And I was actually a developmental biologist. You have to know what sex is to be a developmental biologist, otherwise you don't get any embryos. If I am returned to Holyrood, there will be no hiding place for the anti-science, anti-reality SNP and the Greens. The scientific knowledge and understanding that I hold has a moral force, and I will deploy it. Some people think that science is an elite organisation and activity, but it isn't. Science is a working class activity. The children of the middle classes go into the professions. They become doctors and lawyers. They do not enter science. The uniform of the scientist is jeans and a t-shirt. Ah, Scotland. In the news this week, Westminster government has prevented the building of a wind farm, wind turbine factory in the Highlands. 1,500 needed jobs in the Highlands have been stopped. Why? Because the company is Chinese and because the factory would compete with factories in England. The Westminster government knows that the game is up. We will be independent. Salvo, Liberation are at the UN right now. They are getting the UN to recognize the fact that the Union is a lie. The Union does not exist. It has never existed. Scotland is an annexed colony, and Liberation is at the UN to prove it. And we will be listed by the UN as a non-self-governing territory. The British government has for decades been going around the world telling other countries that Scotland is a happy partner in the Union. When we are listed as a non-self-governing territory, those countries will go to the British government and say, "You lied to us." The political pressure on the British government will be immense. That is how we get a referendum. I'm a member of Salvo. I'm on the admin team of Salvo Tayside. So I'm plugged into this. It's very important. And look at the world. There's war in Europe. There's war in the Middle East. 2 wars in the Middle East. Israel is bombing the tents in Gaza. In the West Bank, the settlers are pushing Palestinians out of their villages right now while the world's attention is elsewhere. This is not good enough. I'm proud to be a member and a candidate for the Workers' Party because I know that I'm talking to people who agree with me. So elect the Workers' Party on May 7th. We criticise the SNP for asking for both votes because every election, 1 million SNP votes are wasted on the list. If you vote Workers' Party on the list, we will displace unionists and maybe even misogynist Greens. Vote Workers' Party. Thank you.
As you can tell, the wars in the Middle East are constantly coming up as a theme, and it is affecting all of us. Our next speaker is Colin Buchanan, who is Glasgow against NATO. Now, when I first met Colin, we were on the steps of He's not here. Oh, right. Okay, well, when I first met Colin, it was on the steps in Glasgow, and there was a big rally. There will be another rally this Saturday, organised by GJAC and Scottish Palestine Solidarity Campaign. So if you have the time, please come along and join our rally on Saturday against the war. What time does it start, Mick? Noon. It starts at noon, and if you go onto the SPSC website, you'll get the details. So we haven't got our no to NATO speaker, but I'm sure that our next speaker, and I'm looking now and I can't find him or her. Yes. So our next speaker is a great friend of mine who has a fantastic sense of history, and I'm sure that Catherine McKernan will get you to your feet as she takes you through her speech. Catherine and I have known each other for, 3-4 years now? And I'd like you to give a big Glasgow welcome to a local lass. And an addition to the lineup on the list in Glasgow, Catherine McKernan. Did I pronounce your name right? She's also my elocution teacher, and she's teaches me
it's the Scottish pronunciation.
Scottish pronunciation.
It's definitely not Mulgaby. Anyway, I'm not really all that used to speaking with a microphone, so I apologise if I don't quite get it right. So I was going to start by reading out my speech, which I have done in gigantic writing, so I don't have to quite put my glasses on yet, but we'll see about that in a moment. Because I think that it's important to bring together some of the threads of what we've been listening to just now. When we were hearing Laura talking about the housing, the absolutely disgusting housing crisis, and who is actually behind it. What we're seeing in Scotland just now is something that we're seeing echoed throughout the world, and that is the most incredibly massive transfer of public wealth into a very, very few private hands. And this is ricocheting throughout the world. And what's happening just now in Gaza is so beyond, it's just so beyond the beyond. People can barely even talk about it now. And again, we're seeing people talking in terms of the transfer of some kind of like property to these billionaires. It actually beggars belief about what was happening. One of the reasons why Scotland hasn't, if you like, changed more rapidly, I believe, is because something I say quite often is that Scotland suffers from generational amnesia. We literally know nothing about our own history. We were hearing just now about conscription. That is coming in. We can all see it. We can all see it a mile away that it's coming in, and it'll be dressed up for all sorts of reasons. It might even be dressed up as, hey guys, we're going to have lots of jobs for the young people. But did you know that in Scotland, throughout Scotland, there were conscription riots? There were conscription riots when the British Army tried to drag the Scottish people into wars that they had absolutely nothing to do with, just as we have just now. And those conscription riots often ended in massacres. And one of the big massacres was the massacre of Tranent. Scotland's history is a chain of events. It's a network of events. It's not just one thing here or a king or a queen or whatever there. We learn nothing about Scotland's history, and yet if you really knew Scotland's history, you would know that Scottish people, in one form or another, rebel very approximately every 20 years. Every 20 years you see an uprising of one sort or another. In 2014, we had what we thought was an uprising at that time. I want to say to you that this complacency that we're seeing just now, where we have this uni-party, which is the Labour Party, the Tory Party, the Liberal Party, or the Lib Dems as they call themselves, the Greens, the SNP. We've just got this uni-party. They do nothing, they mean nothing, they're there. They are now the establishment. They're not moving, they're not going anywhere, and they're not taking us anywhere. One of the things I absolutely loved and admired about Alex Salmond was that his knowledge of how things really are, of how things really operate, fueled what he was able to achieve. I mean, he was just one man, and my goodness, what that guy was able to achieve is unbelievable. And if we allow ourselves to find out about our own history, and you might think that's not relevant, but it is relevant, it's still relevant, it's still ricocheting through the present and will ricochet through the future. He used his knowledge of history, he used his knowledge of law, economics, how the world works, and he was really, really instrumental in making so much change. We can do the same. We have to inform ourselves, we have to make sure that we inform our children, and we have to make sure that in Scottish schools we actually start teaching Scottish history, proper Scottish history, what actually happened. In Scotland, we really are genuinely a bunch of rebels. We just take a rest every now and then. Well, we've had our rest since 2014. It's time to get moving again. This is the start. This is another start. We have to go again. Today, I've been given the great honour, actually, of making what's going to be called the Declaration of Govan. And the interesting thing about this declaration that is probably slightly different from other declarations that have been made, though not that much different from the Declaration of Arbroath, is in addition to stating that Scotland is a sovereign people, we also exercise our right to our sovereign resources. I am sick to the back teeth of people saying, oh, we'll just move this wee bit of money around here, and we'll move this wee bit of money around there, and we'll shave the bone a little bit further, we'll just, we'll pay it a little bit more. That's a nonsense. Scotland is rich. We are a rich country, and our people are living in poverty. So, if you'll allow me to, I'm going to move on to the Declaration of Govan, which had to be written down because I'll never remember it all. There's a lot to it. So if you'll excuse me, we meet in Govan, and this place has been chosen with great intent. This is not a place of ceremony. This has been and always has been a place of work. And I was born here. I was born in Govan. This is a place of memory, of industry and of struggle, and it matters because this declaration is not about constitutional ornament. It's about power. It's about dignity, and it's about the Scottish people, which are the source of all legitimate power in Scotland. Scotland's not a province, we're not an administrative convenience, although we're treated as such. We're not a possession to be managed by another parliament, although we are currently being extractively colonised. We have been extractively colonised for 300 years. We are massively resource rich, and none of that, or poverty, pocket money of that, is given to us to allow us to exist. But we are in the process of watching our people being even further impoverished now because the greedy are getting greedier. We're not a bank of natural resources to be extracted for the benefit of others on these islands, but not Scots. Scotland is not a source of cannon fodder, although we have been used as that repeatedly. We must not allow our young people to be used as cannon fodder again, and it is coming. We are a nation. Scotland is a nation. And the people of Scotland we're so different from England. We're so different. They have their parliamentary sovereignty, where they think Parliament is, at the head of everything. But always within Scotland, always it has been the people of Scotland who hold the power, who hold the law, who hold the legal decision-making. Our written constitution, because we actually do have one, and our principle is not that power descends from Westminster as a favour. Our written constitution and principle is that the government is held in trust, for a limited time and for a limited purpose, and only by consent, the consent of our people. This is enshrined in our constitution, in our history, and in our law. But how many of our people know that? So few. We therefore here tonight affirm without hesitation that the right of the people of Scotland to determine the form of government best suited to their needs is, as applies throughout the world, inalienable. It cannot be extinguished by convenience, it cannot be delayed by managerial caution, and it cannot be made contingent upon the permission of those whose very power and wealth depends upon its denial to us, the people. Govan give this declaration its name for a reason. Here and across Clydeside, working people built ships. My own family were in shipbuilding. They didn't own it, they just did the steel plating. Engines, steel, communities and civic dignity. And here the lesson was learned that democracy is hollow when wealth is extracted, industry is broken, and the work of people, the purposeful work of people, is discarded, and decisions are made elsewhere by those insulated from the human cost of those decisions. The constitutional cause of Scotland and the social cause of her people are not separate causes. They are one. We place at the heart of this declaration not only nationhood, but justice, social justice, the right to decent work, the right to a home, the right to public ownership, where monopoly and extraction impoverish the common good, the right to energy security from Scotland's own resources, and they're massive, the right to food security, industrial renewal, cultural confidence, peace and democratic control over the conditions of national life. It's all about power and control, and to have that power and control, we have to have power and control over our resources and stop shaving to the bone. We've got plenty of money. Once upon a time, and this is a true story, I had the misfortune to be sat behind two, at the time, Tory MPs, and I recall vividly them saying, and this is decades ago, that they were talking about turning Scotland into a national park. Yeah, a national park for the enjoyment of guess where? Yeah, and we have been turned into that almost. We reject the reduction of Scotland to a managed territory whose assets are harvested, while its communities are told to lower their expectations. Let's penny pinch a little bit more. We reject permanent austerity for the many alongside the constitutional indulgence for the few. So let's say it clearly. Scotland's future must be decided in Scotland by the people of Scotland, and in the manner consistent with our democratic principle that sovereignty lies with the people of Scotland, with the nation, and not with external Section 35 veto. People will say, and just to digress very, very slightly, in the late 1980s, early 1990s, there was a group that went from Scotland to the United Nations. And the UK government had been lying to them, really had been lying to them major, big time, and saying to them, Scotland's got devolved power. They do, honestly. The Strathclyde Regional Council is a devolved power. This is what they told the people in the United Nations. And for a long time they believed them. But there was a group of Scottish citizens who went across there and said, this is all lies. This is not happening. And the so-called UK, England trading as the United Kingdom, or England trading as the British Empire, or England trading as, were forced to give Scotland at that time devolution. There was a national convention of the estates at which, I promise you this is true, there was actually an absolutely decent deal done for a form of devolution that would have inevitably led to independence very shortly afterwards. And as fast as that happened, the British government, who are not, they act really quickly when they really have to, surrounded that with a commission. And this commission were supposed to implement the actual decisions of this massive convention of the estates, which involved all of the parties, all of the churches, all of the industry, all of business. And when that happened, this commission somehow turned it into what became the Sewell Convention. It was led by Lord Sewell. And they denuded us of control over broadcasting. What does control over broadcasting give you? It gives you control over the pipeline of information, so that even if you don't get the education in the schools about history, you get it, through your telly, through your radio. They made sure that we didn't have that. They closed off broadcasting to us. Then what did they think? We'll get power as well while we're at it. So they took all of control over power generation from us. And they've been planning this for years, right? So they took all the control of power. I mean, look at the Macron report. That was hidden by the Labour government at the time. So they took control of power, they took control of broadcasting, and they have been gradually denuding Scotland of our industry and of our population, because our young kids have to go where the jobs are. Where are the jobs? Where's the industry? It's all down south. And where do all the retirees come to? Well, they all come up here because our land, our services, our NHS is so much better, so much cheaper. Our water is beautiful. Yeah? So we are being harvested. We are being harvested for our population. Our people are being used as cannon fodder and always have been. They take our energy, they take our industry, and the taking of that factory where the investment was by China is just another example of 1,500 jobs. They won't be coming here, they'll be going down to England, I promise you that. Right? So, no more extractive colonisation. It ends now. Let's commit to that tonight. The extractive colonisation of Scotland ends tonight. We start now. So here, in very, very succinct terms, and try and give you a copy, is the Govan Pledge. Scotland is a nation, not a possession. We stand for a sovereign Scotland whose political freedom is matched by social justice, public duty and material natural resource recapture and renewal. Scotland is a nation, not a possession. Sovereignty resides in the people of Scotland alone. Public ownership of strategic assets is a constitutional necessity. Industrial reconstruction must replace managed decline, because this is managed decline. Housing is a national right, not a speculative commodity. Housing is a right. It's for people to live in. It's for people to have warmth and good health and have a platform for their lives. It is not a speculation. Land, sea and natural wealth must serve the common good. Democratic, municipal and community power must be restored. Anti-austerity government is a test of sovereignty, not an optional extra. Public office must be governed by integrity, transparency and public duty. Finally, and this is so important, Scotland shall stand among the nations in democratic right and solidarity. Adopt it, read it, circulate it, build it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Catherine McKernan. I hope I pronounced that right. Our final speaker before George Galloway is Tariq Imtiaz, who's come to, he's one of our candidates and he's come all the way from Aberdeen. I think he's had quite a journey. So we welcome him. And you've heard tonight about the Govan Declaration. You'll be hearing a lot more about that declaration over the coming weeks. And I hope if you're impressed with what you've heard so far, if you're not a member of the Workers' Party, then you will join us. It's a £5 a month, and we'd love to have you all on board. So with that, can I welcome Tariq Imtiaz.
I don't think they have left anything for me to talk, because the things I want to talk, they already cover everybody. So thank you very much. Friends, colleagues, respected workers and proud people of Scotland, good evening. Thank you for giving me opportunity to speak today here in Glasgow. I stand before you with a simple message. Scotland deserves fairness, security, jobs, strong families and peace. Let us begin with the jobs, the backbone of every strong nation. Across Scotland, many skilled oil and gas professionals have lost their livelihood, and many more fear they will be the next. There are engineers, technicians, and workers who powered our economy for decades. They built industries, paid taxes, and support families. So today we ask a clear question: why we are reducing exploration when alternative energy alone still cannot meet the full demands of our country? Our vehicles still need fuel, our industries still need energy, our hospitals, farms, and factories still depend on reliable power. Yet, instead of producing our own energy, we are importing it from abroad at high cost. This is not a common sense. This is not an economic strength. That is not economic strength. If we produce energy locally, we create jobs locally. If we invest locally, we strengthen communities locally. Look at Norway. Norway did not abandon its energy workers. Norway continued responsible oil and gas development while investing heavily in renewable energy. Norway built one of the strongest economies in Europe by protecting jobs and planning for the future. If Norway can do that, Scotland can do that too. Scotland is rich in resources, oil, gas, wind turbine, water, and innovation, but many people feel the wealth generated here does not always return to the communities that created it. Our message is simple: Scotland resources should benefit Scotland people. Now let us talk about the future renewable energy. We support clean energy, we support innovation, we support progress, but progress must be practical. Scotland has a vast land and offshore space for wind turbines, biomass, and new technologies. Countries like Italy and Spain have expanded renewable energy step by step while protecting industries and jobs. We have coastline, we have land, we have the talent. What we need now is a leadership and investment. Next, let us speak about safety and security. 30 years ago, many of us felt safer in our communities. Today, too many families feel worried about crime, drugs, antisocial behavior. Parents worry about their children. Elderly citizens worry about their safety. Safety is not a luxury. Safety is a basic right. We need more visible policing our street, smart policing using modern technology and stronger cooperation between communities and law enforcement. We should value the experience of responsible volunteers and retired citizens who want to help keep our neighborhood safe. Law and order must be strong, fair, and fast. Now let us talk about peace, because peace is not a weakness, peace is a strength, peace is a humanity. Around the world, nations make choices about war and peace. Some rush into conflict, others choose restraint, diplomacy, and responsibility. Look at Ireland. Ireland has maintained a long tradition of neutrality. It has shown that a nation can stand strong, protect its citizens, and still focus on peacekeeping and diplomacy. Look at Spain again. Millions of citizens in Spain stood up to oppose unnecessary wars. They believe that the safety of their families and the stability of their country must come first. These examples teach us important lesson. When nations avoid unnecessary wars, they protect their citizens, preserve their resources, and stand on the right side of humanity. War destroys family, war destroys economics, war destroys future. Peace builds communities, peace builds prosperity, peace builds hope. And today we cannot ignore the suffering of innocent civilians around the world, including the people of the state of Palestine, families, children, and communities. Families, children, and communities everywhere deserve safety, dignity, and justice. Standing for humanity means protecting innocent lives and supporting peaceful solutions. Because the truth is simple, every bomb dropped overseas is the money not spent on schools, hospitals, and jobs at home. Every war drains resources that should be building our communities. Every conflict creates uncertainty for our economy and fear for the future. If we want safer streets here in Scotland, we must make wise decisions abroad. Security at home begins with the stability abroad. Now let us talk about the heart of our society, family values. Strong families build strong communities. Communities built on respect, responsibility, and care for one another are communities that stay united and resilient. Children learn their values first at home. They learn discipline, kindness, and responsibility from parents, grandparents, and teachers. When families are supported, young people are guided in the right direction and the communities become safer. In today's world, people are exposed to many messages from television, social media, and outside influence. That is why strong families' values are more important than ever. Families and communities must teach young people to think wisely, act responsibly, and stay grounded in good values. Because when families are strong, society is strong. When communities are united, crimes falls. When values are clear, the future becomes brighter. Finally, let us talk about democracy and fairness. In a true democracy, people must be free to speak, to question, and to stand for justice without a fear. The law must apply equally to everyone, and fairness must never depend on status, background, or opinion. Our nation must always stand for justice, accountability, and respect for human dignity. So today I ask for support jobs for Scottish workers, support safe streets for Scottish families, support fair use of Scotland resources, support strong families and responsible communities, support peace instead of war. The people of Scotland are hard-working, resilient, and proud. We believe in fairness, we believe in responsibility, and we believe in better future. Together we will stand up. Together we will speak out. Together we will build a stronger, safer, and more prosperous Scotland. Thank you.
Thank you, Imtiaz. I think we can now go straight to our leader, George Galloway. I know that everybody's been waiting to hear this speech. Everybody's been speculating. Well, the speculation ends now. Let's hear what the boss has to say. Thank you.
Hello, Glasgow. Well, I wish I was in Glasgow rather than and so the time differences. Hence, I'm addressing you. My heart is in Glasgow, and always has been. As you know, I am the record of Winston Churchill himself of the number of constituencies, the number of cities in which I have served as the Member of Parliament. And people often ask me which was my favourite, and undoubtedly the answer is Glasgow. So my heart belongs to you, and as you know, now that I've got a pacemaker, my heart is in even better fettle than it has been for many decades. So I hope to live a long life, and I hope to live it as your member of the Scottish Parliament. I remain in exile, the leader of the Workers' Party, and as long as my colleagues wish that to be true, then I'll continue. But I promise you, if I'm elected to the Scottish Parliament, I'll be on the first flight back to Glasgow. And in the Scottish Parliament, for which I fought for many decades, including when it was very far from popular on the left, when it was very far from popular in the Labour Party. I was one of the most prominent advocates. In fact, I've been a prominent advocate of many things for a very long time, which is probably how those of you who weren't even born when I was first elected a Member of Parliament in Glasgow know me. On screen, on streets, in Parliament, everywhere that I can, with all the breath that God gives me, I stand up for what I believe in. And it happens to be what many of you believe in too. I was expelled from the Labour Party by Tony Blair in 2003 because of my role in the anti-war movement, my role in opposition to the British and American invasion. In fact, I often think that my life has been one long bloody war, but I've always known which side I stand on. I stand on the side of the workers, and I stand on the side of those who fall victim to empire, victim to imperialism, whether British or American. I, of course, am standing in Glasgow, principally on local matters. I happen to believe that Britain is going down the drain so fast, it's definitely time for us to leave it. We who have an opportunity to leave it. The poor workers in Carlisle, Liverpool and Manchester have no ability to leave it, but we do, because this is a union, it's a voluntary union, and we established in 2014 that as a nation we have the right to self-determination. That means we have the right to leave as well as the right to stay. In 2014 we decided to stay. But when the facts change, so do my opinions, as Marx said, Groucho Marx, that is. And the facts have definitely changed. The failure of the British state is now essentially complete. We are adrift at sea. We are a country that sends warships all over the world, but cannot solve the most basic problems of our own national life. Unemployment is rising, poverty is rising, child poverty is rising, fuel poverty is rising. Pretty soon our people will not be able to buy fuel at all. I have a house in Scotland. I tried to buy heating fuel from several thousand miles away just recently. I used to get same-day delivery. They promised me a delivery in 4 weeks. And that was last week. Who knows if any heating oil is still available at all, even if it is, whether our people can afford it. Our cold weather payments were taken away to give to Zelensky and his corrupt regime in Kiev. We don't have enough ships to guard our own coastline, but we sure are prepared to send our ships to guard the coastline of the Persian Gulf, at least when Donald Trump tells us to. We have the worst Prime Minister and the worst government that we have ever had in Britain. And Winston Churchill was the Prime Minister when I was born, so that's really saying something. Truth is, we have to get Scotland out of this. And the Workers' Party in Scotland will very definitely be campaigning as a priority for a new referendum. It's our right to have a referendum. No one can deny it to us. And the British state would be very, very unwise to take us down the path of the denial of our national rights. If I'm in the Scottish Parliament, if Yvonne Ridley, our #1 candidate, she's #1, will be in the lead in that campaign for a referendum, and a response if we are denied a referendum. And in that referendum, as I've already recently said, are we campaigning this time for a yes vote? Are we campaigning to leave the United Kingdom? Are we campaigning for Scottish independence and Welsh independence also? Now, if we replace Sean Sweeney Prime Minister, I'll not be much of a step forward at all. A long drip of misery, as I first called it, so blue that the birds are trying to nest in. His vision of Scotland is very different from ours. We believe in a Scotland out of NATO. We believe in a Scotland out of the tyranny of the European Union. We believe in a Scotland that will have friends everywhere, enemies automatically nowhere. We reject the idea that we must be friends with someone because America told us to, and we must be enemies of someone because America told us to, or Brussels told us to, for that matter. We believe in an independent, neutral force for peace in Scotland, and that's what we will fight for in Hollywood if we are elected. We believe in common sense socialism. We don't believe that the market has the answer to all of our problems, especially a market in a newly independent country where the role of the state will be important. We believe Scotland should join BRICS, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and all the dozens of countries that have now joined BRICS. We believe that the sun rises in the east. We believe that the whole turn of events in the world has placed Eurasia as where it's at. And we believe that Scotland can play a big role. We have very talented people. We have vast experienced, invented so many things. We travelled so far in our historic past, not always for the best of reasons, but when we were there, we made a difference. And that's the kind of Scotland that I believe in. That's the kind of Scotland I want to see. Now, it's quite well known we're very pro-women's rights, and we oppose the taking away of women's rights to give to men. It's well known that we are traditional in our social and cultural values, but boy, are we radical on the economic and foreign policy matters. We believe that Scotland can be great. We want to make Scotland great again. If I'm elected, and in particular, if my sister Yvonne Ridley, a hero whose face the Israeli government, I am going to Yvonne Ridley is in front of Israeli guns and in Israeli dungeons over and over again. She's a fighter. She is an outstanding political figure. If you elect us to the Scottish Parliament, we'll do you proud, and I'll be able to come back to Glasgow. Wouldn't that be a fine thing? At least for me, and I hope also for you. So enjoy the meeting. My apologies again that I can't be with you. I'm George Galloway. I'm the leader of the Workers' Party.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that's us for our very first public meeting here at the Workers' Party Scotland. So please help spread the message, tell people to join the party and help us deliver this campaign. And let's bring an end to the garbage that was the SNP and the Greens. And who wants another 12 years of that? Because I certainly don't. Thank you very much.